My 19F pregnant SIL 26F is cold and short with me, but kind to everyone else. Original post: my sister married her wife a year ago, and they receive financial support from my wealthy parents. Despite having good jobs, this financial help allowed them to decide to have a baby. Currently, my sister-in-law is 6 months pregnant, and they are visiting for the holidays. Since I'm in college, I don't see them often, but I was really excited about their baby. My sister and her wife have been together since their senior year of college and were friends since childhood. Being 7 years younger, I never really got to know my sister's wife until they got married. Even then, I was too busy with college to spend much time with her. I was looking forward to some one-on-one time during this visit. Our parents live about 2 hours away from my sister and her wife, while I flew in from across the country. We're all staying with our parents, who are not yet retired. My flight arrived late, so I slept in the next morning. My parents went to work and my sister went shopping, leaving me alone with my sister-in-law. I didn't realize she was around until she came downstairs while I was making lunch. Seeing her pregnant for the first time since their wedding, I was excited and tried to greet her with a hug, but she backed away. I apologized, but she just gave me a weird look and rummaged through the fridge. Trying to make small talk, I asked about her due date. She answered curtly, March, and kept making her food. I said I was excited to have a niece or nephew and asked if she had a preference for the baby's gender. She sighed loudly, said she didn't care, and moved on. My sister had mentioned that her wife had PTSD from a previous pregnancy, so I thought that might be why she was distant. I tried changing the subject to her work, but she set her knife down loudly, stared at me for 30 seconds, then said fine and went to the dining room without another word. Throughout the day, I continued trying to interact with her. I offered her a drink and asked about the show she was watching, but she responded dismissively each time. When my parents and sister came home, her demeanor completely changed. She was cheerful and chatty with them, discussing baby names and other topics with enthusiasm. When my mom suggested naming the baby after me, Aeneas, a family name, my sister was excited, but her wife glared at me. At dinner, she ignored my requests and only responded when my sister pointed out I had asked her to pass the potatoes. She giggled and said she hadn't heard me. I felt completely sidelined. Unsure of what to do, I considered talking to my sister or directly challenging my sister-in-law, but was afraid of causing more tension. I wanted to maintain positive relationships with my family and be involved in my niece or nephew's life. The next morning at breakfast, my sister-in-law spoke to me, but it wasn't positive. She asked snarkily if I was seeing anyone. I explained that school was busy and I didn't have time for dating. She responded, well, not everyone finds someone. My sister tried to change the subject, but my sister-in-law continued to be overly nice to my parents while being cold towards me. Later, I offered to walk our dogs. When I returned, my parents had gone shopping again with my sister, leaving me alone with my sister-in-law. She asked about my college experience, and when I started talking about my pre-dental major, she rolled her eyes. I apologized for oversharing, and she accused me of having a problem with reading the room before walking away. When my sister came home, I intended to talk to her about my sister-in-law's behavior. I wondered if her behavior stemmed from an incident before their wedding. Initially, their wedding date conflicted with my finals, causing a big fight. Eventually, they moved the wedding to accommodate me, and my sister laughed about it later, but I wasn't sure if my sister-in-law held a grudge. My sister was always supportive and tried to mediate, but her wife's hostility towards me only worsened. When my parents returned from shopping, my mom mentioned a onesie for their granddaughter, revealing that I was having a niece. My sister-in-law's reaction showed she hadn't told me about the ultrasound, which hurt deeply. I apologized for crying and went upstairs to avoid further confrontation. My mom explained that my sister-in-law didn't like me, partly due to the wedding date issue, and my sister knew about the tension but tried to mitigate it. My sister and her wife argued downstairs, and I felt responsible for their marriage problems. My mom and I took the dogs for another walk to give them space. Later, my sister came home visibly upset. My mom took her into the kitchen, and I felt like a child again, overwhelmed with guilt. My sister didn't even look at me before storming upstairs to another fight with her wife. My sister-in-law later apologized, admitting she had been petty and rude. I tried to understand and apologized for any unintentional hurt. She got angry, saying I ruined our relationship, and stormed off to another fight with my sister. I spent the night throwing up from the stress, and my parents tried to calm the situation. The next morning, my sister and I went out for breakfast. She revealed that she and her wife were considering separation after the baby's birth. They would try counseling, but if things didn't improve, they'd divorce. She assured me it wasn't my fault and that her wife's behavior towards me was a deal breaker. Despite my guilt, my sister insisted she wouldn't let anyone make me feel unwelcome. Since then, the atmosphere has been tense and awkward. My sister-in-law avoids me, and my sister has been extra supportive. I feel terrible and expect more drama during Christmas. This update isn't great, but it's where things stand.